Well, hello, lovely booktubers. I'm Deb. Welcome back to my channel, Raina Read Stuff. I'm here in the book shack, and it's a Saturday. So what's going on? Well, I've decided this month, because I am doing a couple of book events that I'm reading quite a few books for, that I will split my weekly roundup into 3 parts. So on a Saturday, I am going to do my Occult Detective wrap up, and that's what this is going to be. Tomorrow, Sunday, I'll do my general wrap up. Monday, I'll do my Victober wrap up. That way, people who are only interested in half the subject matter don't have to watch the bit they're not interested in, and also no one is subjected to a 45-minute video. So, Occult Detective October, the brainchild of MJ at Reading This Life, and I'll put all the co-hosts down below. This week, week 1, has been reading pre-1960 occult detective books. I've had such a lovely time and introduced myself to a wide range of characters that I'd never met before. So, if we go down through them, Jules de Grandin by Seabury Quinn. I have read a couple of these. Short stories, novellas, don't know what they are really, but they're fun. Jules de Grandin. This is The Tenants of Broussac by Seabury Quinn. Jules de Grandin is a French, very effervescent character who specializes in the occult. So he is invited by the owner of a large estate called Broussac to try and discover why tenants won't stay that long. The house is currently occupied by an American couple and their daughter. Their daughter has some sort of affliction, which means she can't get out of bed or function very easily. She is in love with an American who she has left behind, and one of the reasons their family has come to Europe is to distance her from her lover. Her affliction includes bruises, and there's bruising around her neck. Sometimes there's bruising around her chest, there's bruising around her arms, and it looks as if a large rope has coiled around her. Can Dujardin find out? De Grandin find out what's going on? This was first published in 1925, serialized in Weird Tales. The following one that I read, which I really enjoyed, also published in Weird Tales, but this one was October 1937. It was called Pledge to the Dead. And this was one set in New Orleans, in the French Quarter. And it featured a man who is engaged to his girlfriend. They had plans to marry. He goes to New Orleans on a trip, comes back, absolutely refuses to marry the girl, says he can't, he still loves her. Nothing has happened to stop him loving her. But he can't marry her. Excuse me. And it's up to de Grandin to find out what is going on and why the sudden change of heart, because the girlfriend absolutely refused to accept. I have somewhere a rather nice book that I think I found on Kindle, Occult Detectives, an anthology of late Victorian investigators of the paranormal. This is edited by Ozzy Turner, or O.C. Turner. In here, I found a number of things. One was one of the Jules de Grandin books. Another introduced me to Dr. John Silence. Dr. John Silence is the creation of Algernon Blackwood. The story I read was called A Physical Invasion. And a young writer of humour had gone to see John Silence because he was living in a house and he couldn't write anymore. His humour had gone, it had just completely left him. His wife was really worried about him. What I particularly liked about John Silence and what I liked about this story was every minutiae of how Dr. Silence operated was written down in this story. So Silence asks the young couple to move out for a while, and he rents them a house, and he goes and stays at their house. He takes with him one of his, and it appears he has many, cats, and one of his many dogs. And he takes them for two reasons. He takes them because both animals are sensitive to mysterious goings on, but they're sensitive in different ways. So cats seem excited about mysterious events, and dogs start by being terrified and then by attacking. And the story details the reactions of these two animals as they spend the night in this house that has some sort of malignant spirit in it. This was published in 1908. I don't know whether this one was serialised, but Algernon Blackwood published it in 1908. Next, Mr. Flaxman Lowe. Mr. Flaxman Lowe is the creation of E. and H. Heron, whose real names were Kate and Hester Pritchard. I read the stories of the Spaniards, Hammersmith. It was first published in 1898 in Pearson's magazine. And it is the story of a house that is possessed by a being. And nobody's quite sure what this being is to start with. The house has been left to a young man who just wants to find out what on earth is going on in it. It's been left to him by his aunt. His aunt died, and her husband, who was not, I think it was her second husband, so it wasn't this guy's uncle, had disappeared at the same time, never to be heard of since. So a respectable amount of time goes by, the house becomes this young man's. But there's obviously something sinister in there. And it's up to Flaxman Lowe to find out what it is. Now, what I liked about this one, not all stories end the way you would expect them to. These are occult detectives. There ain't necessarily a happy ending. It's not a spoiler to say that it's an interesting ending that it just turns it on its head a little bit. William Hope Hodgson published The Goddess of Death in 1904 in Royal Magazine initially. And this features a guy called Mr. Horton. I can't actually remember which way around it is. But this is a good one. This is a good one in that Sir Horton is travelling through a town. He stays in an inn, and unexpectedly an old friend turns up. And he's just arrived as well, and both have been told a story about how a giant statue in the village park has all of a sudden started freeing itself from its plinth in the evenings and killing members of the town. So having being stuck together at this inn, nothing to do, they decide to investigate. And the first night, they head to the park. They can't see the statue. It doesn't appear to be on its plinth. And then it comes up at them whilst they're going through the park. They run, and somebody else is killed. The following night, they determine to do a better job than this. And so they head off again. This time they take in a couple of the townspeople and they try and discover what's going on. I really like this one. To be fair, I liked all of them for different reasons, but I really enjoyed this one. Now, Rudyard Kipling. Our occult detective here is called Strickland. In fact, he's called Strickland of the Police in the two stories I read. They're by Rudyard Kipling, and the first one I read was The Mark of the Beast, which was first published in The Pioneer in July 1890, and the second one I read involved the same protagonists, and that was called The Return of Imray. That was published the following year. We are in India, as possibly you would expect with a bit of Kipling, and our unnamed narrator is a friend of Strickland. In the first story, it's New Year. White people from throughout the area have gathered to celebrate the new year. Strickland and our narrator are with a friend of theirs, and he gets exceedingly drunk and defaces an effigy in the temple on the way home. Strickland is furious, and a white leper appears from behind the statue and starts hurling abuse at, what's his name? Fleet is his name. Fleet then begins acting in a very, very strange manner. What has happened? It's up to Strickland to find out. In the second one, we also have an unknown narrator. I'm not quite sure. The way the story was written would indicate that it was the same narrator, but as the guy is unnamed, who knows? Anyway, he meets up with Strickland again. Strickland has just moved into a bungalow. And the bungalow has been vacated by a guy called Imray, who has gone off somewhere. And Strickland and his dog move in, and his dog is very loyal to Strickland, doesn't leave his side hardly ever. The friend is staying for a couple of days, but there's a mysterious presence in the house. All of a sudden, the dog refuses to sleep there anymore. You have to read it to find out what happens. Now, some more big names here. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I have read all of the Sherlock Holmes stories, some several times, but I don't think I've read very much else by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. So this introduces the character Dr. Hardacre, and this is called the Brown Hand. Dr. Hardacre has some relatives who have been, well, the uncle or great uncle I think, has been working in India for many years, many decades. He and his wife returned to the UK, and Dr. Hardacre goes to visit them. He's one of a number of cousins who go to visit them. His uncle wants to speak to him because he has a serious problem. He is being haunted by a man whose hand he amputated. He was an Afghan traveller. It was the only way to save the man's life. But the man said when he died, it was the custom of his people for the body to be together. So he would need his amputated hand back when he died. In the meantime, the uncle was given permission to keep it with his collection of medical artifacts in his house. Unfortunately, there's a fire and the house burns down, and one of the things that is destroyed is the hand. And said uncle is now being haunted by the handless man, who has obviously died, and he wants his hand back. What are they going to do? The hand has been destroyed. Who knows? We have another unnamed narrator in a story by H.G. Wells, which is called The Red Room, and was published in The Idler in March 1896. The Brown Hand, incidentally, I don't know whether I said, published in The Strand in May 1899. Anyway, The Red Room, published in The Idler, March 1896. This is an odd one. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the writing style. It sets it up quite well. But then for me, it doesn't quite end. There's a castle with a room that is said to be haunted. And our unnamed narrator decides he's going to spend the night in there to find out what the hell is going on. There are 3 servants in the house, everybody in the castle, everybody else has disappeared somewhere else. They all advise him not to do that. The last person who tried that was found dead at the bottom of a short flight of stairs that led out of this red room. It doesn't quite end for me. There isn't quite a conclusion, and I think I probably wanted one. Although, this is the mysterious and unexplained. These are occult detectives. Should there always be some sort of resolution, or should it remain unexplained? Next up, we're nearly done. Dr. Martin Hesselius. The Creation of Sheridan and the Fanu. I read a story called Green Tea. It was sort of novella. It was about 10 chapters long. It was published in 4 parts in a magazine called All Year Round, over 2 months in 1869. And this features also a character called Reverend Jennings, and Reverend Jennings is in a right state. He meets Dr. Hesselius at a party and makes a beeline for him and asks him where he can track down a copy of Hesselius's book of about 10, 12 years ago, which is now out of print. And Hesselius senses that he has some problem that he wants to be solved, befriends him, discovers what the problem is. And the problem is an apparition that keeps appearing. I won't tell you what it is, but it's driving this poor guy insane. I mean, really round the bend. It's been going on. He's been seeing this thing for 3 years, and it's driving him absolutely round the twist. And he needs help. He needs help to stop whatever's happening to him. Finally, E. Hoffman Price. I read The Peacock's Shadow, which was featured in Weird Tales in 1926. And it stars Pierre Datoire. Now, Pierre Datoire has been sort of unfavourably compared with Jules de Grandin. They were about the same time, but I think de Grandin appeared first. I read a story called The Peacock's Shadow, which I enjoy very much. It involved mummies and all sorts of things, and that was great fun. I have had a wonderful week reading about these guys, and I'd never read of any of these characters. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 named characters and 2 unnamed narrators. 1 unnamed narrator. Thankfully, I've got more from each of them, so I'll look forward to reading those. I might add another few in week 4 of Occult Detective October, which is Anything Goes. But there's more. This morning, I received a parcel, and as far as I knew, I hadn't ordered anything. Inside this parcel was a beautiful collection of 6 books sent to me by Dave Broussac, who is one of the 2 editors of Occult Detective magazine. I'm going to review at least one of them for him for Occult Detective magazine. He sent me the most recent copy. How fabulous does that look? I've had a quick flick through some of these. I've read one story that was in here, which I've really enjoyed, and it was called The Butcher of Hemming Street by Natching T. Casa. I'll tell you about it when I review the book properly, but it's full of short stories, some lovely creepy artwork. There are book reviews in here. There's articles in here. Oh, look at this. He's fun, isn't he? And I'm really looking forward to reading this. This is the one I'm going to be reviewing for the magazine. And it's called The Conspiracy of the Ravens. It is by Nelson McKeeby. It says, it's a tale of Rains-a-Lot, the warrior who ate Thomas Custer's heart. Ivy de Sale, a child soldier and veteran of the French resistance. Dr. Kell Brainerd, holder of 3 PhDs in reality physics and a purple 1957 Chevy containing the spirit of a New Orleans Macumba from the 19th century. It sounds insane. I'm looking forward to it. This is an Occult Detective magazine special edition, and this is The Angry Dead by Rosemary Pardo. And this is Literary Ghost Stories. Then I have Waking Up Dead. This is by Amanda Fasciano and is the first in the Life After series. Detective Cadence Riley is killed in the line of duty. I'm sorry, the cat's coming. And she finds herself recruited into a group that monitors haunted sites. Then we have this, which I'm excited about. This is A Solemn Curfew and Other Dark Stories by Bev Allen. I love that cover. Wickedness, Swan Songs and Longing in the Fens, and the truth behind exactly what is needed to make the very finest cheeses. Bev Allen presents a feast of strangeness and folk horror, clever, wry, in touch with the earth, and often rather weird. Finally, I have Mischief in the Wood by Tina Raff. And this is a story about 3 young people who are gifted and talented, have weird parents, and head off for a school trip to the eldest piece of woodland in Britain. Dave, thank you so much. Sorry about this. Thank you so much for this very generous gift. I am so looking forward to reading them. And I think next week, which is fiction published after 1960 for Occult Detective October, and some may have to hang on until the cat's biting me gently, but obviously it wants feeding. Some might have to wait until the 4th week, which is an Anything Goes week, but I'm so grateful. Thank you so much, and I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into these. Now, I shall stop fighting with the cat. Thank you very much for popping by. I shall do my normal weekly wrap-up tomorrow, which will be shorter because I haven't read so much. And I'll speak to you again soon. Thanks for watching.